Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for round about the next 45 minutes. So welcome along to today's session. It's for Sage 50 accounts. And this session was part of a series of webinars that we ran for report design, and the recordings of those other sessions in that series are on the recordings list if you want to go down that route. So this was part one. So looking at what options have you got before you think about requesting changes to reports or wanting to design your own reports, that type of thing. So there's a lot of questions that we get or our support teams receive either via the phone or via email or via the web chat facility, where people request reports, and actually there's normally a simpler option available to them. So we're just going to explore those options in today's session. So as I say, it should last around about 45 minutes. Now, just before we get stuck into the session this morning, just as normal, we'll quickly run through a little bit of housekeeping. So you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you've got one, it will be muted automatically if you've enabled it, and you would find it's muted throughout the session today. That means if you've got any questions for me, you'll need to pop them into the questions panel, and to access that, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon that's on your taskbar, should be down the right-hand side of your screen. If you give it a click, it'll expand the panel for you, and then you'll be able to start typing in that box in the bottom right-hand corner. So remember to click send as well once you put it in there. So anything you're not sure about or want to ask as we're going through, let me know. Anything and everything, just pop it in there. I'll try my best to pick those up. If you want a copy of today's slides, those are available to download as well. So do take that opportunity during the session. And as normal, this session is being recorded. So if you want a bit of a recap or you think it would maybe interest your colleagues as well, then just watch out for your follow-up email. It will contain that link to the recording. We'll also include links for the upcoming webinars that we have planned in. Our timetable currently runs up to the end of next month. We try to run sort of have about a month and a half of sessions available for people to book onto. They're all free to attend, other than giving up a little bit of your time. And it will also include a link to our recordings as well. So if you are interested in pursuing and developing your knowledge of the report designer in a bit more detail, there is that report design series that we ran. I think that was towards the end of last year. We run that many, you forget when you run them, but they should be available. I think there were 7 sessions, so do check those out if that's of interest to you. We never know, we might run them again in the future, but nothing scheduled in at the moment. Anyway, keep those questions coming. Do engage with me. I'll try my best to pick that up. Barry, I can see you've found the questions panel already. Good morning to you. Right, okay, let's have a look at what we're going to be covering. So quite a small agenda for this morning's session. So it will mainly be demonstration based. So brief introduction. We'll then I'll be sharing my screen. We'll get stuck into some demonstrations. So things like finding reports, using filters and quick search, configuring your columns, outputting to Excel. I'll also mention a little bit about the additional reports that you've got available as well, because that's often overlooked. Those additional reports that customers have requested, and they've proved so popular that sometimes we make additional reports available. We used to have what was termed a report of the month option, and that's where you'll find them. Just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support. And then if there's any questions I haven't been able to pick up along the way, I'll try and pick those up. If I don't get a chance to answer your question, apologies in advance, but I'll get a reply to you by the end of today. So that will just be done via email. Right, so let's get stuck into the webinar. As I say, keep your questions and your comments coming. Not many of you on the session today. We've got about 10 of you, so plenty of opportunity to get your questions in then for me to pick them up compared to normal. Right, okay. Anyway, let's get started then. So just as a brief introduction, and on the subject of reports, there are actually over 900 reports available in Sage 50 accounts. They've been trimmed down recently in recent versions. So I think when version 31 was first rolled out, some of the reports were consolidated. So you've got extra criteria on some of the reports now. So if you're running certain daybook reports, it'll ask you for a specific transaction type, as opposed to them previously they were all individual reports. But the number of reports you have will depend very much on the version of Sage 50 accounts you're using, the variant. By variant, I mean whether you're using Essential, Standard, or the Professional level. Higher up you go, the more reports you have, as the more options you have. And also based around the options that you've got enabled as well. So for instance, if you've got CIS built into your software, maybe you've got that extra subscription for it. Maybe you've got the foreign trader option enabled. So you will have additional options available. Now, one of the most common queries, as you'd probably expect when you've got that many reports, is I can't find the report. I want a report that shows this, but it might be you're in the wrong ledger. It might be that actually you're just not quite sure what you're after because there's that many, maybe you've gone into customers and there's that many subfolders, you're not sure where to look. And on the back of that, because you can't find what you're after, the common query is, right, I want to design a new report or layout, and I would probably never ever recommend that. The report design is quite a complex tool, so we always recommend, is there anything that's close to what you want? If there is, that's your starting point, go down that route. You would maybe, if needed, you would make amends to a report or a layout, but very rarely would we ever say, right, yeah, start from scratch. That's probably why you'll never see any sessions for webinars designing reports from nothing. So it's always best to find a report that's close and then tweak it if needed. Now, options-wise, for helping you find reports, you've got a number of options available. So there's, if you're on version 30 or above, there was the Sage AI-powered report finder. I'll show you that one in a moment. And that report finder, it's something that's built into your software if you've got a Sage account attached to your software. So if you've set one up and you've attached that, you'll have the report finder available to you if you're on version 30 or above. There's also the Which Report, what we term the Which Report article within our Help Center, which is what the report finder, why it was developed, because this Which Report article proved so popular. So again, very similar options. Obviously, Report Finder itself built into your software. The Which Report article, it's in the Help Center, but they essentially achieve similar things. They try to help you to get to the report that you require. So you might, if you're searching for, I don't know, department or something like that, it will try and say, right, these are the reports that are available. This is where you'll find it. So sometimes half the battle is making sure you're in the right ledger and actually just finding the report that does exist. But there are alternatives, and it's the alternatives that we want to try and explore today. So if you might find the report that you're after, so as I say, it's close to what you want, but then explore those alternatives. People will contact and say, well, it's the right report, it's the right information, but actually, I only wanted to pick up certain customers or only certain invoices. You've got quick search available. You can configure your columns. You can send it to Excel. So when I talk about configuring columns, you can switch additional information on. So if it's just a one-off, you may be better off doing that than even running a report and then, trying to amend that in Excel or even having an amend to it. So filters are, if you learn filters and how to use them, it can be a very, very powerful addition to the standard set of reports that you've got. Some good examples in our Help Center as well, and there's a couple of webinar recordings on it as well. Now I'll quickly show you the report designer sessions, because I've got from this morning. I know there's not many of you, but there's already a few questions coming through. So what I'll quickly do, if I just share my screen, there we go. If I bring up my browser, first of all, if I pop onto the webinar page. So remember, you will get the links to the webinars on the follow-up email. So if you go to the recordings, so that link will definitely be on your follow-up email. Give you this page. And you can do Control F if you've never done that before. If you do Control F, it'll bring up a little box here if you're using Chrome. I think it works the same on Edge. And you can type in some keywords. It'll try and find what you're after. But otherwise, we've tried to group them into key areas. So obviously for reports or report design, if we scroll right down to the bottom, as you can see, there's loads of these available. This is the sort of the section I would encourage you to watch. So this is the one we're running today, so we're essentially repeating that session, but these ones follow on quite nicely. So these are the original key sort of 6 sessions that we ran looking at the basics of report design. And Barry, you mentioned, is there a webinar on customizing your sales invoices? So yeah, use this one. So number 2, using the design tools. So design tools, it'll cover things like adding a logo, adding a bit of text. It covers alignment, changing fonts and font sizes, that type of thing, adding boxes, drawing lines, all the basics that you normally want to cover. Also data fields as well is covered in that one. So it's worth, if you're new to report design or you've never touched it before, that would be a starting point. Right, now going back to our help center, so sage.co.uk/help will take you to this page, and you've got this Sage 50 option. So we'll choose our product, and then what we're after is, if I just type which report, and it's this one here. So in the results, it's which report, finding the report you need in Sage 50 accounts. So this is similar to the report finder that's built into version 30 and above. So we just scroll down and you'll click the report finder tool. And the idea with this is that you can filter the list. You can search as well. So if I click on the filters and I say, right, I want it's a bank report, and maybe I want it to include something like, say, the bank balance. So I just apply the filters, and then it will try and guide you to the right report that you're after. So it tells you the report and the file name, what's included, and also where you'll find it in the software, and also whether it's available in maybe only certain levels. So this one, for instance, it says it's available in Sage 50 Accounts Professional, whereas this one says all variants. And there may be a few differences here and there, but that will try and guide you to get at the right report in the first place. So as I say, the report finder that's built into your software now in version 30 and above, it would achieve a similar thing. Right, let's quickly pop back to the slides just for a moment. I think my next slide is just to introduce the demonstrations. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at or work through a number of demonstrations. So we'll get you thinking a little bit about what options have you got before you think, well, actually, I need a new report. So Barry, you mentioned there about customizing your sales invoice. Again, don't go down the route of thinking, well, I want to design one from scratch, an invoice layout. Find the one that's fairly close to what you want, and then you can add your logo to it. You can add a bit of text, you can remove information, you can add information, you can add things like your banking details at the bottom, that type of thing. It'll save you so much time going down that route. Right, anyway, I will share my screen again and we'll get stuck into some demos. So the main issue that you tend to find is that there's too much information, maybe there's too little, or you just need to filter. So for instance, if we look at the customer list here, you might have some with zero balance accounts. Now, if I run a standard report and we just do customer details and we'll do the customer list, if I run that report, it's going to ask me which do I want to apply a range of customers. But it then gives me just a list of all of the customers, even the ones that are inactive and active, and also the ones with a zero balance. Now, I might not want that. So this is where people would sometimes contact our support team and say, well, actually, I want to exclude the zero balance accounts. So what you can do, so things like using the filters option, really adds that extra flexibility to your reports. So if you haven't touched it before, give it a go. Have a little play with it. There's so much you can do with it, and yet you'll probably just not even scratch the surface of it. So things like hiding zero balances, it's probably where most people start. Really easy to use though. So if I just go into filter, that lets you start building your filter. Now there's a wizard if you want to go down that route, trying to guide you through that process. But we'll just set up a basic one. So we'll choose where. The field is based around the ledger you're in. So it will give you a list of the fields from, in this case, the customer records. It's not based around transactions, this one. It's based around the customer records themselves. So it's got things like 1 month balance, the 2 month balance, the 3 month balance, the account name, whether it's on hold. So there should be an alphanumeric order on the list. And if you know what it is you're after, what you can do rather than sort of scrolling down this list, because even for customers, if I start scrolling down, you'll see there's loads of fields that you can filter by. But if you know what it is you're after, so balance in my case, you just type the first letter. Now, if I keep typing B, you'll see it starts cycling through all the ones beginning with B. So what I'm after is just get back to the beginning there. Balance. And condition. Now, if you've got a little bit of knowledge of Excel, you'll probably be familiar with these. It's like filtering in Excel, really. So we're going to say where balance is. Now, there's a couple of options if we want to hide zero balances. We might want to hide negative balances as well. So if we want to hide negatives and zeros, we would choose is greater than and set it to 0. If we just want to hide the zeros and show the positive and any account that has a balance, then we want to choose is not equal to 0. So sometimes more than one way to crack the same nut almost. And then all we do is we apply that. And when we do that, close out, you can see that they're all hidden now. Now, you'd probably be aware that when you run a report, generally, whichever ledger you're in, it will only run that report based on what's listed or what's highlighted. So if you've selected an account or a number of accounts and you run a report, it'll only base the report based around what you've got selected. We'll come on to the selection style a little bit later on. But it means I can now run that report. If I want to get rid of the filter, I can either go back into filter, click clear, or I can just switch it off using the little filter icon. So it switches it off. It now says all records at the top, and we've got the zero balances back in there, but it means it's set up in the background. I want to switch it, run my report, I can easily do that. There's loads you can do with filters. So things like just for your day-to-day, your transactions, you might not want to see last year's transactions. If you've got hundreds of thousands of transactions on there, even just few thousand transactions, you might think, well, I don't want to see the older information. Obviously, you want it to be there in the background, but you don't want to see it. If you work in the invoices and credits area, you might not want to see previous year's invoices. So again, you might be running a report and think, well, actually, I only want to base it on the current financial year, the reporting information within it. So again, you could go into filter, just see where. We'll look for invoice date. Now it might be called dates, it might be called invoice date. Let's see, I'll just scroll down. Again, I could, if I know what it's called. No, so it must be called invoice date. So sometimes again, trying to find the right one that you're after. So there it is, invoice date. And I'll say is greater than or equal to, and let's choose the 1st of January of this year. Apply that, and you can see obviously it's it reduces the records that are listed. So it means I'm not endlessly scrolling, or if I go to run a report, I haven't accidentally included 7 years worth of invoices on that report. It's one of those that when you used to print everything, rather than just save it as a PDF or email it or anything like that, you would just send automatically without even thinking, you send it to the printer and you think, oh no, I've included 7 years worth of data. It's going to be massive. Actually, I'll run it again, and this time I'll concentrate a bit. So filters are a great way of just almost like streamlining what you can see and helping you to get at the information you're after. So filters available just about throughout the software as well. So customers, you've got the filter option. Suppliers, filter. Invoices, you've got the filter. Bank accounts, you won't have the filter. There's not much to filter on. Nominal codes, you do have a filter, but I've got to be honest, you very rarely use it in this screen, other than maybe base it around the balance. But things like transactions, you've got filter as well. So if you're looking for something specific, again, you can hide all those older transactions. You do want to see them on a daily basis, but they are there in the background. Now, there is obviously a distinction between you might have an active customer that you want to include on a report, but it might just be at this point in time they might have a zero balance. So if you've not come across the inactive feature yet, so again, we just base it on customers. So if we say this one, it's got a zero balance account. I'll say actually maybe it was a one-off. Maybe I know they've gone bust. They've stopped buying anything from us, or likely to buy anything from us in the future. Then we could flag them as being inactive. So to flag an account as being inactive, just go into it, tick the little inactive checkbox, click save, and as long as it meets the criteria, it'll flag that account. So you can see there's a Y in this inactive column. And what it means is, for this account, it's flagged as being inactive. Certain reports will actually ask you, do you want to include inactive or just or not? So again, it'll filter out based on the report criteria. But you can do that in advance. You've got this little checkbox at the top here, include inactive. If I take the tick out of that, it hides that account that we just had selected. Charlotte, you were mentioning what happens with the balance. To flag an account as being inactive, just if I just show you this one, if I go into this record, that's got an outstanding balance at the moment. If I try to flag it as being inactive, save it, this time I'll get a message. So there is certain criteria, and for things like customers, suppliers, the main criteria or the first element is it's got to have a zero balance. So it won't let you flag an account that has a balance on the account. So you can't be in that position. So I'll just close out of that one. Don't need to save any changes. It won't let me flag it. What it also means is you might be in a position where you think, well, actually, have I got any at the bottom? I've got a Z1 account at the bottom as well. It's got a zero balance. What I might do is just think, well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everyone, and I could go into batch changes. Now, batch changes, you won't have that if you're on the essentials level. But batch changes means that you can make changes to multiple records simultaneously. So if I just go into that and I say, right, I want to flag all those records as being inactive, I'll save it, say, yes, I want to make the changes. I will get a message because obviously loads of my records have balances, so it doesn't let me flag all of them. But the ones that are in a position to be flagged, that'll be it done. So I just include inactive. You can see we've got a few records highlighted now as being inactive. Do be careful though if you're going down that route, because as I say, it might just be that at the moment an account is active, but it just so happens it's got a zero balance, so you probably don't want to flag that one. But all the ones that you no longer use, again, you could easily make your selection, go through the batch changes, or if you run essentials, you would have to do them one at a time into the record, flag it, save the changes. As long as it meets the criteria, then it will flag it as being inactive. What it means is you can take the tick out of this and it hides those accounts. It's still there in the background. So let's say this Fred Bryant account, maybe they haven't bought anything for us for a while, then maybe they come back to us totally out of the blue. We can go back into the record and just say, well, actually, that one's now active again. Save it. And it just removes the tick. So it's now, essentially, it's not going to be hidden if I take this tick out. So it's a good option to learn about that one. Good way of sort of hiding accounts in the background. It's available in customers, suppliers, nominal codes, bank accounts, and also within your products and services as well. You often find when people have lots of products and services, they might have sort of seasonal products and services that they offer, and maybe some old products that, you know, you're done and dusted with them, you've moved on since then. So rather than being in a position where you're trying to delete them, you could just flag them as being inactive. But they do have to meet certain criteria. Next one I wanted to bring your attention to were custom fields. Now, sometimes when you want to apply a filter, there's not a specific thing that you can say, well, you might be in a position where you're thinking, well, I want that account, that account, that account, and that account. I want all of those included in the report. And rather than go down and select them every time, what you could do, it links in very nicely with the filters, but have a look at the custom fields option. So we'll go into this record, onto the defaults tab, and you've got these custom fields, what used to be termed analysis fields. I mean, they're still entitled analysis by default. So you've got 6 of those. You might have 3 if you're on an older version, but you've got 6 if you're on, I think from 28.2 and above. You will have 6 of these fields. You can use them for whatever you want. So the first one I've called customer type. Now, if you want to change the titles of these, all you would do is you would go into settings, configuration, and then you've got the custom fields tab at the top. So rather than it being called analysis 1, I've got mine called customer type. I've got a sort of responsible rep. I've got region at the bottom. So if you've got a way of that you want to classify your customers or your suppliers or your products, that type of thing, then you can rename one of the fields that you might want to use. So if I just leave customer type as it is, we okay that. Back into customers. And then on the defaults tab, there's the text there. Obviously, it'll change to whatever you've got that set to. And it just prompts you to remind you what you're using that field for. So I've probably got a range of those where I've got some flagged as trade, retail, cash. And it means that what I can then do, I've got like a sales rep recorded against a specific account. It means that I can then, again, filter my list. You might work in credit control and actually you've got a number of people that look after certain accounts. You could flag that. Say, right, credit controller, put the person's name in or the initials, that type of thing, and then filter your list. We just close out of that. We'll go back into filter and I'll do where, and I'm looking for custom type, which is what I've got it called. So it should be on the list. So there it is. And I'll say, I'm looking for the ones that are flagged as trade. I apply that, click close. I've then got my list. So again, if I was in credit control and I'm thinking, right, I want a list of customers assigned to me, I could do that if I've got them flagged in that way. Again, by only having those listed, it means I can then run a report and it'll only include the ones that are listed. So again, narrowing down the information that you want to include on the report. So you're not generating a report and then sitting there thinking, well, that's not mine, that's not mine, that's not mine, crossing them off. It means that you're narrowing it down, so your report is accurate. It gives you provides the information that you're after. But again, you've got that for customers, custom fields, exactly the same. You've got it in suppliers. If I just pop into a supplier record, you'll find it on the defaults tab. You've got it in invoices and credits. So if we go to enter a new invoice as an example, on the, let's see which one it is the order tab, you've got the 3 custom fields for that one. Normally when we discuss custom fields, the big question is, well, what would I use it for? It's whatever you want. So when you enter an invoice for a specific customer, do you ask them certain questions? Can I just ask, where did you hear about us? Then you could potentially run reports on that type of thing, as long as you key it into a consistent field. So you've got it in products and services as well. So just go into a record. You've got the on the web tab. So you've got the custom fields down here. Now, rather than being called analysis 1, 2, and 3, they're called category A, category B, and category C. And again, you would change those titles if you want to use them. You would change them within the within settings and the configuration option. Just guess of finding the right tab. But it does mean that you can then filter based on that information. So if there's not a field that you, in a way, that enables you to get at the information you're after already in a record, you can introduce that by using those custom fields. Let's pop that back to customers. Again, maybe put another thought in your mind a little bit. Something just something to bear in mind before you run a report. A lot of the reports that we do get requested for will be one-offs. So you might think, well, actually, I want like a customer list. I want certain information to be included. Can you show that information on your customer list? So what I mean by that is, if we right-click any of the column headings, it will give me a list of the fields that I can show, so the additional columns. So there's a one here, last invoice. That might be the kind of information you want displayed. If I switch it, there it is. So I can see the dates of those. Now, that might not be on a standard report. Rather than try to design a report, you might just switch on certain information. You might switch off certain information as well. So I might not want don't want the inactive column to be displayed. So right-click a column heading, find it, it's ticked at the moment, I'll switch it off. I don't want this email or print option to be displayed. So right-click, that one's a bit further down the list. There it is, so I'll switch that one off. Now, maybe I've got the right information that I'm after. So actually, we could just send that across to Excel. So rather than trying to run a report, if we've got the right information listed, we can get at that. So especially if it's just a one-off, much easier than contacting our support team and then finding the report you're after and then making amends to maybe include things like the last invoice date. Then if you want to, obviously you could apply additional filters. On top of that, just put them in Excel. You'd sort the list, whatever you want to do at that point. You're just working on a spreadsheet at that point. Now, one thing to bear in mind, I'll just close out of that, little tip on this one, is if I sort the list, so let's say I just put them in balance order, so that's in ascending order. If I want to put them in descending order, just click on the heading again at the top. But if I send that information to Excel, it holds it. What it doesn't do is if I run a report now, so a standard report within Sage, it wouldn't list them in that order. The report itself will actually have its own order, which by default would generally be in account reference order. You could potentially put them in balance order, ascending or descending. That's something I'm sure that's included in one of those report design webinars that we mentioned on the recordings list earlier. So if you want to go down that route, then watch the recording. But again, sometimes it's just easier just to have it. How has it got the information on the report that you're after? If it does, right, I'll now send that to Excel, or even just print the list. Just depends what you're after. Now, with regard to obviously sending information to Excel, you've got whatever's on your list, you can send that to Excel. When you're entering transactions, you've got send to Excel as well. So if you wanted to save a copy of the batch of transactions that you're entering, quite common when people are entering, say, a batch of bank payments, for instance, maybe you're recording some expenses. You might want a quick report of what you've just entered. Then you could easily, before you click save, just click send to Excel. It'll save that for you. Other options you've got with regard to Excel is when you're running a report, just pick a one, doesn't really matter. You've got various options at the top. Now you can send the report to Excel. Now if I just send this age debtors analysis contacts report, if I do the report to Excel, you've got the report to Excel and data to Excel. Very, very different formats. It depends what you're after. So if I just do report to Excel, I'll just accept all that criteria just so you can see what it looks like. So it's very similar to the report format if you generated that, but you will find you've got things like, you might have some empty columns, for instance, that you might not want. So you might be having to then start messing around with a little bit. The other one you've got is data to Excel, which again provides the same information, but in a totally different format. So in this case, there's a number of transactions for that A1 design company that we had. But it depends what you're after. So have a good think about those options before you think, well, I need a new report, or I need to narrow it down so I get just the information that I'm after. Obviously, instead of using filters, you can just go down and make your selection. Now, I'll quickly mention the selection style as well while we're at it. If you find what I've got set there is when I click on an account, it highlights it. I click on another account, it highlights it. And I've got what we term the Sage selection style. So when I click on it, it's like an on-off way of highlighting records. So I click on that one again, it removes the highlight. You might find yours doesn't quite work in that way. So if you go into Tools and Options, and then you've got the Environment tab, loads of good little settings in here, by the way, as well. Have a good look through them. But on the Environment tab, you might have the Windows selection style highlighted. And that works in a slightly different way when you come to highlight records. I click on this one, highlight it. If I then go down to Business Exhibitions and I just click, you'll see that as I randomly click, the highlight just follows me around. It doesn't leave the other one selected. If you want to make a number of highlights, you've got various options. So I want to highlight this one and all the way down to Business Exhibitions. If I hold down the Shift key, click on Business Exhibitions, it lets you select that range basically. It'll highlight the start and end and everything in between. If we want to just select individual records, then what we can do is hold down the Control key. That means that when I've got that held down, it's a bit like the previous style that we looked at where I was just randomly clicking, it leaves it highlighted. But if I release that Control key and click on this video rental company account, you'll see that it removes the other highlights. It starts following me around as I'm just randomly clicking. But by highlighting records, it means that they'll be the only records that are considered when you go to run a report. So if rather than even rather than set up a filter, you might just think, well, actually, I want this report, but just based on this one customer. Make your selection. Obviously, if you're trying to run it for everyone, click clear first so that you've got no highlights. It'll run it for all the records then. And if you're coming to things like year end, make sure you've switched your filters off so that all records are included on your reports. So I hope that's given you a little bit food for thought this morning. There's loads of options available for you when it comes to, or before you go to run a report, to try and narrow that down. Now, it does bring us to the end of the planned demos. If you've got any questions, please pop them in there. Obviously, I've got plenty of time to go through any additional demos, or anyone has any or additional questions, I can try and pick those up as well. Remember, if you weren't quite with us at the start, to submit a question, you just click the little speech bubble icon on the right. It'll expand, and then you can start typing in that box to the bottom right-hand corner. So pop them in there. I'll try and pick them up in just a moment if there are any. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, again, not much information on there. The detailed information, if you want that, you'll find that in our help center that we covered a little bit earlier. Help center, to access that, just sage.co.uk/help, choose your product. It'll bring you to a screen where you can either search or you can start clicking through. And there is one for reporting as well, reports and layouts. So I think, who was it mentioned it earlier? As Barry mentioned it earlier about customizing things like your invoice layout. So loads of information in here about reports, using the report finder, creating your own reports and modifying it, your layouts. So there's information in there, but there is that series of webinar recordings as well. Just to quickly publicize one of our popular webinars at the moment is Copilot. You might have heard a little bit about Copilot. You might already be using it. You might be thinking, oh, I've heard of Copilot, but I don't want to use it. Or you might be thinking, I've never even heard of it. It's going to be a big addition to Sage 50 accounts. So Copilot's like what I would term like it uses AI, but uses a bit of what you term what I would term your digital assistant. It provides you with top level information. So it enables you to, if needed, you can click through that information as well. So for instance, it covers key themes like helping you to manage debt. It'll say, right, these are the customers that have overdue invoices or an overdue balance. But you can then click there to get at the transaction information. Managing stock. These are the products out of stock. These are the products low on stock. These are the items that are potentially out of stock in the next 30 days. So that type of information, it's giving you top level information. And if you need it, you can drill into it to get at that information in a bit more detail. So it's a good complement to what you've already got for reporting. Now, we run webinars on this on a weekly basis currently. So proving very popular as well. So come along, see what it's all about. You'll see what it's like Copilot for the current version, which is our latest version 31.1. You must be on that to use Copilot. But there will be some other big changes for Copilot introduced in version 32 whenever that will be released. So best to get ahead, see what it can do now, and then obviously it'd just be a case of you learning the differences. So if you are interested, if you're an accountant as well, it might be that you want to be aware of this because your clients might be using it. So get ahead of the game, get yourself registered, see what it's all about. And as I say, hopefully that will prove useful for you. Right, I'll come back to the questions in just a second, but if anyone's about to leave, nearly fast approaching lunchtime on a Friday now. I'm sure everyone wants to know, I'll try and give you some time back. But many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it, giving you some food for thought a little bit with your reporting, giving you some options that maybe you weren't aware of. Some of you, I'm sure many of you will have totally been aware of what we've covered today. But there'll be a little survey pop up as you leave. If you've got any thoughts, ideas that you'd like to share surrounding the webinar or just webinars in general, topics you'd like to see covered, please take that minute just to complete the survey before you pop out for your lunch. And your follow-up email will be with you in round about 1 hour's time. So you've got a link to today's recording, a link to our upcoming webinars, and also a link to our recordings page as well. So remember, those report design sessions are on there. It will really cover the basics and possibly even some of the more advanced features, give you an idea of what the report designer is capable of. So watch out for that. That's round about 1 hour's time. Right, going back to questions. Barry, your comment there, Copilot isn't available on Client Manager. It's also not available if you're on the Essentials level of the software. So I believe currently you would need to be on the Standard level, or my mind went totally blank there, the Professional level. So those 2 levels you would potentially have Copilot available to you. If you want to find out more about it, sign up for the webinar or into the Help Center, and there's a little section on Copilot. David, you mentioned there about can you do more than one filter at a time? So if I go back to my screen and we go into customers and we pop into filter, you can have multiple lines if you want. So if I wanted customers that are trade customers, remember, based on one of those fields, but maybe I want those and only those that have a balance as well. So let's just apply that one first of all. Have I got any with a, just my luck, I haven't got any with a 0 balance. So let's just pay this one off. I'll quickly just, was it Mike's Road Health Centre? Oh, sorry, Mile Road Health Centre. Need my glasses on there. And I will just quickly pay everything off, just so that this account has a 0 balance. So let's just refresh that. So there it is. So let's say I want to hide that one. It's a trade customer, but it's got a 0 balance, and I don't want those 0 balances to be included. So if I just go back into filter, I can sort of, I've got the filter set up, so only my trade customers are specified. All I do, I just click down to the next line. Now this is where you need to be careful with your joins. So I can add as many additional lines as I want. Now if I use and then I say balance, so remember I can press B, it'll start cycling through the ones beginning with B, and I'll say is not equal to 0. I'll click apply, and it'll hide that Mile Road Centre, whatever it was called. So do be careful. If I'd gone the other way, if I choose or, you'll see I get very different results. So I'm getting that just in case you're looking and think, well, why is that one come back in there? That one, that's that Mile Road Health Centre. Yes, it's got a 0 balance, but it does meet the filter because it meets the first part of that criteria. So I'm saying, right, I want customers to be listed that are either set as trade or that do not have a 0 balance. So the join is very important. So do be careful with that one. If I'm wanting to only accounts that meet both elements of that criteria, then make sure it's the and. So in this case, I want customers that are flagged as trade and that don't have a 0 balance. Click apply, it narrows down, get what I'm after. So have a bit play around with that one as well, David. There's some, I think, if I go back to the webinar recordings page, let's have a quick look. Again, you'll get this one, the direct link to this page. But if we go into, I think it'd be the customer section, because that's where we normally demo it. There we go. In the customer section, you've got filters and search, filtering your customer list, filtering your customers list by analysis fields, so those custom fields that we looked at. As I say, sometimes people call them analysis fields, sometimes they're called custom fields. So some good ones to go at. You'll find information also within the Help Center itself. Diane, you mentioned you've upgraded to version 31. You're on Professional, but no Copilot yet. Do you need to do something to get it? What you need to do, access our Help Center. So sage.co.uk/help. Click the Sage 50 Accounts option. It'll take you to this page. And then if you click into here, Sage Copilot. Now, if you follow this one, set up Sage Copilot, it would guide you through what you need to do. So making sure you run 31.1 and it guiding you through that process. You might not have it yet. It hasn't necessarily been enabled on every account just yet. But if you follow that through and there's anything you don't have, just get in touch with our support team and they can check that for you. Right, okay, we'll end the webinar just at that point. Once again, many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it. You've picked up some useful tips, some food for thought when you get a chance. Don't get stuck with the filters. The filters will apply to your view only. They don't transfer across to anyone else's. So don't worry if a bit like mine, you want to see trade customers only, the way I've flagged it. It doesn't impact on your colleague who maybe wants to see retail customers only, that type of thing. So it's user specific. But many thanks for coming along. Do take that minute to complete the survey if you can. Share your thoughts, your ideas, suggestions for future topics. We love reading those just to see if we've hit the mark or not. Watch out for your follow-up email and do get yourself registered for some of those upcoming sessions. Many thanks, have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on some webinars next week. Many thanks.